The blood-orange sun dipped below the horizon as Fiona Woodley stood on the train platform with nothing but a battered leather suitcase and the weight of rejection heavy on her shoulders. Oroville, California, 1876, a dusty frontier town that represented her last hope and possibly her final mistake. She had come west on little more than a desperate prayer after the letter from her estranged aunt arrived, offering a home following the death of Fiona's parents. But now, staring at the empty platform where her aunt had promised to meet her, Fiona realized she had been abandoned yet again. The last passenger departed, leaving Fiona alone as twilight descended over the Sierra foothills. She clutched the crumpled telegram in her hand, her aunt's final message explaining she had remarried and moved to San Francisco, regretfully rescinding her invitation. The station master had already locked up, casting a pitying glance her way before disappearing down the main street. "You'll want to find lodging before full dark, miss," he'd advised. "Oroville ain't always kind to newcomers, especially ones without prospects." Tears threatened, but Fiona squared her shoulders. At 22, she'd endured enough hardship back in Boston to know crying solved nothing. Her stepmother's parting words echoed in her mind. "No man will ever want damaged goods like you. You'll die alone in that God-forsaken wilderness." The sound of approaching hoofbeats made her turn. A tall figure on horseback emerged from the growing darkness, stopping a respectful distance away. The man dismounted in one fluid motion, his spurs jingling softly against the wooden platform. "Station's closed, madam," he said, his voice deep but gentle. "You seem a mite lost." Fiona studied him cautiously. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore the practical garb of a working cowboy, dusty boots, worn denim, and a faded blue shirt beneath a leather vest. His face, partially shadowed by his wide-brimmed hat, revealed strong features weathered by sun and wind. Despite his rugged appearance, his blue eyes held a kindness that made her breath catch. "I'm not lost," she replied, straightening her spine. "I'm merely reconsidering my options." The cowboy's mouth quirked upward. "At this hour, in a town you clearly don't know," he glanced at her luggage, "waiting for someone they aren't coming." Fiona bit her lip, hating how her voice trembled. "My aunt changed her mind about my staying with her." He nodded slowly, as if this information made perfect sense. "Name's Ryder Dawson. I manage the Triple D ranch outside town. My sister runs the boarding house just down the way, cleanest one in Oroville. I'd be happy to escort you there." Fiona hesitated, years of caution warring with immediate need. "I'm Fiona Woodley. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Dawson, but I wouldn't want to impose." "No imposition, Miss Woodley. Night's falling fast and Oroville ain't the safest place for a lady alone after dark." He reached for her suitcase. "May I?" She relinquished it with reluctance. "Thank you." As they walked, Ryder leading his horse by the reins, Fiona felt the stares of townspeople. Whispers followed them down the main street, making her increasingly uncomfortable. "Pay them no mind," Ryder said quietly. "Small towns run on gossip like engines run on coal." "I'm rather accustomed to being the subject of speculation," she admitted. Ryder raised an eyebrow but didn't pry. Instead, he pointed out landmarks as they walked: the general store, the sheriff's office, the saloon, which he suggested she avoid, and finally, a neat two-story building with a sign reading Dawson Boarding House. A plump woman with Ryder's same blue eyes burst through the door before they'd even reached the porch. "Ryder, you're late for supper and oh," she stopped short, her curious gaze falling on Fiona. "I see you've brought company. Martha, this is Miss Fiona Woodley. She needs accommodations." "Miss Woodley, my sister Martha Dawson Cooper." Martha's face transformed with a warm smile. "Any friend of Ryder's is welcome here. Come in, come in. You look half-starved, child." Before Fiona could protest that she was neither Ryder's friend nor a child, she was ushered inside to a cozy parlor where the scent of beef stew made her stomach growl embarrassingly loud. "I'm afraid I have limited funds," Fiona began, but Martha waved away her concerns. "We'll discuss that after you've eaten. No one goes hungry under my roof." Ryder lingered in the doorway. "I should get back to the ranch." "Nonsense," Martha insisted. "You'll stay for supper too. That foreman of yours can manage one evening without you." Over a hearty meal shared with 4 other boarders, a schoolteacher, a widowed shopkeeper, and an elderly married couple, Fiona learned that Ryder had built the boarding house for his sister after her husband died in a mining accident. Martha had turned it into one of the most respectable establishments in town. "What brings you to Oroville, Miss Woodley?" the schoolteacher asked. Fiona tensed. "Family circumstances. My parents passed recently and I had to make a fresh start." "She's looking for work," Ryder interjected smoothly, sensing her discomfort. "Oroville's growing fast. Always need for capable hands." Martha brightened. "What skills do you have, dear?" Fiona straightened. "I was educated at Miss Porter's school in Connecticut. I speak French and Italian, play piano, and have managed household accounts. I'm also proficient in various needleworks." A heavy silence fell over the table. The school teacher cleared her throat. "I'm afraid such accomplishments, while impressive, aren't in great demand in Oroville." "Can you cook?" Martha asked hopefully. "Basic meals," Fiona admitted, "though nothing as delicious as this stew." "What about children? Experience with them?" "I tutored occasionally." The glances exchanged around the table told Fiona everything she needed to know. Her Boston education and refined skills were worthless here. She'd been a fool to come west. "She can read and write well," Ryder observed. "Doc Jenkins has been looking for someone to help organize his practice and handle correspondence. His hands shake too badly for penmanship these days." Hope flickered within Fiona. "I have excellent penmanship and am very organized. I'll speak to him tomorrow," Ryder promised. "For now, get some rest." Later, after Martha had shown her to a small but clean room on the 2nd floor, Fiona sat on the edge of the bed, finally allowing herself to cry. Everything she'd known was gone: her parents, her home, her standing in society. All because of a scandal not of her making, a ruined reputation that drove her across the country to a place where she was equally useless. A soft knock at the door startled her. She hastily wiped her eyes. Yes, the door cracked open and Martha peered in. "I brought you some tea, dear." "May I come in?" Fiona nodded, grateful for the dim lamplight that might hide her red-rimmed eyes. Martha set down the tea and settled beside Fiona on the bed. "My brother doesn't usually escort young women to my doorstep," she said conversationally. "In fact, since his wife passed 5 years ago, he hardly notices women at all." Fiona's cheeks warmed. "I'm sure he was simply being kind." "Ryder is kind," Martha agreed, "but he's also selective with his attention. Whatever your story is, and we all have one, it doesn't matter here. Oroville is full of people reinventing themselves." "My story isn't particularly unique," Fiona murmured. "I trusted someone I shouldn't have, and I paid the price." Martha patted her hand. "Well, you're safe now, and tomorrow we'll find you something suitable. The position with Doc Jenkins would be perfect. He's a gentle soul who needs help, but has too much pride to admit it." After Martha left, Fiona stood at the window, gazing at the unfamiliar stars above the silhouetted mountains. Perhaps here, where nobody knew her, she might forge something resembling a life. She thought of Ryder Dawson's kind eyes and felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. Foolish, she scolded herself. Men like him didn't look twice at women like her, women with tarnished reputations and no prospects. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. Morning brought golden sunshine streaming through the thin curtains, and the scent of coffee wafting up the stairs. Fiona dressed in her second-best dress, a practical navy blue with modest trim, and pinned her chestnut hair into a simple knot. Her reflection in the small mirror showed a woman trying desperately to appear confident. Downstairs, Martha bustled about serving breakfast to her boarders. "Ryder's already gone to speak with Doc Jenkins," she informed Fiona. "Eat up, you'll need your strength." By mid-morning, Fiona found herself walking beside Ryder toward a small white building with Dr. Albert Jenkins, physician, painted on the door. Despite her nervousness, she found comfort in Ryder's steady presence. "Doc's a good man," he assured her. "Lost his wife to influenza 2 winters back. His practice has gotten disorganized since then." "Why are you helping me, Mr. Dawson?" Fiona asked suddenly. Ryder paused, studying her face. "Everyone deserves a chance, Miss Woodley. Even someone you know nothing about." His smile was gentle. "Especially them, Doctor." Jenkins proved to be exactly as described, a kind-faced gentleman in his 60s with trembling hands and a cluttered office. Files overflowed from cabinets, prescription orders lay in unsorted piles, and correspondence remained unanswered. "I don't need charity, Dawson," the doctor grumbled after Ryder explained Fiona's situation. "It's not charity if she works, Doc, and from the looks of this place, you need the help." The physician turned his rheumy eyes to Fiona. "Can you read my handwriting, young lady? Most can't." Fiona picked up a nearby patient chart, studying the scrawled notes. "With practice, I believe I can. I've had experience deciphering difficult penmanship. HMPH, and you won't faint at the sight of blood. I can't have some delicate flower swooning when I treat injuries." "My father was ill for many years before his passing," Fiona said quietly. "I assisted in his care. Blood doesn't disturb me." Something in her steady gaze must have convinced him. $3 a week to start. 6 days, Sundays off. Be here at 7 sharp tomorrow morning." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. You won't regret it." Outside, Fiona turned to Ryder, barely containing her excitement. "I can't thank you enough." "You earned it yourself," he replied. "Doc's not one to hire out of pity. Still, without your introduction, I'm headed to the general store. May I escort you back to Martha's?" He offered his arm with such natural courtesy that Fiona found herself placing her hand upon it before she could consider the impropriety. As they walked down Oroville's main street, Fiona became acutely aware of the stares. Women paused their shopping to watch them pass. Men tipped their hats to Ryder with curious glances at his companion. "Is there something wrong?" she whispered. "You're walking with the most confirmed bachelor in Butte County," Ryder explained, amusement in his voice. "Creates speculation." "Oh," Fiona tried to withdraw her hand, but Ryder placed his own over it. "Let them talk," he said. "It's the most excitement some of these folks have had all week." At the corner near Martha's boarding house, they encountered a well-dressed woman whose pinched expression soured further at the sight of them. "Mr. Dawson," she greeted coolly, eyes flickering dismissively over Fiona. "Mrs. Henderson," Ryder replied politely. "Fine day." "Indeed." "I see you've made the acquaintance of our newest arrival." Her tone suggested this was unfortunate. "Perhaps you're unaware, but it's customary to know something of a person's background before extending such familiarity." Fiona felt herself pale. Had news of her scandal somehow preceded her? Ryder's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "I find judging folks by their present actions more reliable than hearsay, Mrs. Henderson. If you'll excuse us." He guided Fiona away, his hand firm at the small of her back. "Who was that?" Fiona asked when they were out of earshot. "Viola Henderson, Fancies herself the moral authority of Oroville. Don't let her bother you. But it did bother her, reigniting all her fears. Mr. Dawson, I should tell you, you don't owe me explanations, Miss Woodley. Nevertheless, I wouldn't want you to suffer by association. My reputation in Boston was compromised. Ryder stopped walking and turned to face her. Everyone in Oroville has a past, including me. What matters is who you choose to be now. His words, so different from what she'd heard in Boston, lodged in her heart like a seed finding fertile soil. For the first time since arriving, Fiona felt a flicker of genuine hope. The next weeks established a routine. Fiona rose early, breakfasted with Martha and the other boarders, then walked to Dr. Jenkins' office. Her days were spent organizing patient records, transcribing the doctor's notes, and occasionally assisting with simple procedures. The work was demanding but satisfying, allowing her to use both her education and her compassion. Ryder appeared regularly, sometimes to consult with Doc about an injured ranch hand, other times with no apparent purpose beyond checking on Fiona. These visits became the highlights of her days, though she tried not to attach too much significance to them. One evening, 6 weeks after her arrival, Fiona worked late transcribing a complicated set of patient histories. When she finally emerged from the office, the sun had set and the street lamps were lit. To her surprise, Ryder sat waiting on a bench outside. "Mr. Dawson, what are you doing here?" He stood, hat in hand. "Thought you might appreciate an escort home. That's very kind, but unnecessary." "Maybe I wanted the pleasure of your company," he countered, offering his arm. As they walked, Fiona noticed a peculiar atmosphere in town, more people than usual on the streets, an air of anticipation. "What's happening?" she asked. "Founders' Day celebration starts tomorrow," Ryder explained. 3 days of festivities, picnics, dancing, games. Biggest event of the year in Oroville. Oh, Fiona hadn't attended a social function since the disastrous Boston incident. The prospect filled her with trepidation. Ryder seemed to sense her unease. "Martha mentioned you've been working too hard. Thought perhaps you might enjoy the celebration." "With me?" Fiona stopped walking. "Are you asking to escort me, Mr. Dawson?" "I believe I am, Miss Woodley." His steady gaze held hers. "Unless you find the idea objectionable." "I don't find it objectionable at all," she admitted softly. "But I should warn you I'm not well practiced in frontier celebrations." His smile transformed his face, erasing years of weathering. "I happen to be an excellent guide." When they reached the boarding house, Martha took one look at their expressions and beamed. "Ryder, you're staying for supper." "And Fiona, I've been saving a dress that might fit you perfectly for the festivities." The dress, when Martha proudly displayed it the next morning, was beautiful, a soft green cotton with delicate embroidery at the collar and cuffs. "It was mine when I was younger and slimmer," Martha explained. "Never could bear to part with it." "I couldn't possibly. Nonsense. It's been sitting in a trunk for years." "Besides," Martha added with a wink, "green will bring out the gold in your eyes. My brother won't know what hit him." Fiona blushed. "Mrs. Cooper, I assure you, Martha dear." "And there's no need for assurances. I haven't seen my brother look at a woman the way he looks at you since Caroline died." Her expression softened. "He deserves happiness, and so do you, I suspect." The town square had been transformed with bunting and lanterns. Tables groaned under the weight of food brought by Oroville's citizens. A platform accommodated musicians tuning their instruments, while children darted between adults, their excitement contagious. Ryder called for Fiona promptly at noon, looking transformed in a clean white shirt, new denim trousers, and a polished leather vest. He stared at her for a long moment before finding his voice. "You look beautiful, Miss Woodley." "Thank you, and perhaps Perhaps you might call me Fiona, since this is a social occasion." His smile was slow and warm. "Fiona, and I'm Ryder." The day passed in a blur of introductions, competitions, and shared laughter. Ryder introduced her to seemingly everyone in Oroville and the surrounding ranches. Fiona found herself relaxing as the townsfolk welcomed her with typical Western directness. "So you're the one who finally got Doc's office in order," one elderly farmer commented. "Man can actually find my records now. Bless you for that." Only a few, like Viola Henderson and her circle, maintained cool reserve. Fiona overheard whispers questioning her background and speculating about her relationship with Ryder. "Don't mind them," he murmured when he noticed her discomfort. "Viola's still angry I wouldn't marry her daughter last year." Fiona's eyebrows rose. "You didn't mention that." "Nothing to mention. The girl's half my age and interested in my land, not me." He guided her toward the dancing platform where couples were already gathering. "Care to dance, Fiona?" Her heart skipped. "I should warn you, I only know formal ballroom dances. Then I'll have the pleasure of teaching you something new." The Western-style dancing proved less structured than Boston ballrooms but infinitely more joyful. Ryder guided her through the steps, his hand warm at her waist, his eyes never leaving hers. By the third dance, Fiona was breathless with exertion and happiness. As evening approached, Ryder led her away from the crowd toward a quiet spot beneath an ancient oak tree. The setting sun painted the sky in spectacular oranges and pinks, silhouetting the Sierra Mountains. "It's beautiful," Fiona murmured. "Yes." But he wasn't looking at the sunset. She felt his gaze and turned to find him studying her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Ryder, I'd like to call on you properly," he said abruptly. "With Martha's permission, of course." Fiona's heart hammered against her ribs. "You don't know enough about me. I know you're kind to Doc when he's cranky. I know you slip extra food to that stray dog behind the office. I know you help Martha with the accounts without being asked. I know your laugh makes something in my chest loosen after being tight for 5 years." He took her hand gently. "What else matters, my past, is your business until you choose to share it." Tears pricked her eyes. "You're unlike anyone I've ever met." "Is that a yes?" She hesitated only briefly. "Yes." The weeks that followed were the happiest of Fiona's life. Ryder called at the boarding house 3 evenings a week, taking her for walks, bringing small gifts, a ribbon for her hair, wildflowers. Once a book of poetry he'd ridden 30 miles to find in Sacramento. On Sundays, when the doctor's office was closed, he escorted her to church services, then often to dinner at his ranch. The Triple D impressed Fiona with its efficient operation and the obvious respect Ryder's ranch hands had for him. He showed her the improvements he'd made, the small herd of horses he was breeding, the garden he'd planted because Caroline always wanted fresh vegetables. He spoke of his late wife with gentle remembrance rather than raw grief, explaining how they'd built the ranch together before she succumbed to pneumonia one harsh winter. Fiona listened, touched by his openness and his evident capacity for deep love. For his part, Ryder never pressed Fiona about her past, though she sometimes caught him watching her with quiet curiosity when she stiffened at certain topics or grew distant at mentions of Boston. Dr. Jenkins approved of their courtship, gruffly telling Fiona, "About time Dawson stopped being a hermit. Man needs a good woman, and you've got more sense than most." Martha was less subtle, already treating Fiona like family and dropping hints about wedding arrangements that made Fiona simultaneously terrified and hopeful. Only as autumn approached did shadows appear on their happiness. The first came in the form of a letter delivered to the doctor's office. Fiona recognized the Boston postmark and her former friend Eliza's handwriting immediately. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The contents confirmed her worst fears. Gossip about her disgrace had not diminished. Moreover, Arthur Blackfield, the man responsible for her ruined reputation, had married into one of Boston's wealthiest families, his lies about Fiona accepted as truth in society. "You were wise to flee," Eliza wrote. "No decent family would receive you here now." That evening, Fiona pleaded a headache when Ryder called, unable to face him with her shame so freshly renewed. The second shadow fell the following week when Gerald Henderson, Viola's son, returned unexpectedly from San Francisco. Tall, handsome, and impeccably dressed, he appeared at the doctor's office ostensibly for treatment of a minor cut, but clearly to inspect the woman his mother had written about. His assessment made Fiona deeply uncomfortable. "I understand you're from Boston," he remarked as she bandaged his hand. "I have business connections there. Perhaps we know some of the same people." Fiona kept her expression neutral. "I doubt it, Mr. Henderson. Boston is quite large. Still, such a small world sometimes. What family are you from?" Before she could answer, Dr. Jenkins interrupted. "That's enough socializing, Henderson. Miss Woodley has work to do." Gerald left reluctantly, but the damage was done. Fiona spent the rest of the day in dread, certain her past would soon be exposed. That evening, Martha relayed disturbing news over dinner. "Viola Henderson is telling everyone her son recognized your name from Boston. Says there was some scandal." Fiona set down her fork, appetite gone. "Did she mention details?" "No, but she's making sure everyone knows there must be a reason you left Boston in such a hurry." Martha reached across the table to squeeze Fiona's hand. "Whatever it is, dear, it can't be as bad as she's implying." "It's bad enough," Fiona whispered. "Ryder will hear these rumors soon. Then perhaps you should tell him yourself before he does." The opportunity came sooner than expected. Ryder arrived at the boarding house the next evening, his expression grave. "Thought we might take a walk," he suggested. They strolled in silence until reaching the small park at the edge of town. Twilight was falling, lending privacy to their conversation. "You've heard something," Fiona said finally. "Gerald Henderson cornered me at the saloon, claimed he'd asked around about you, said I should know what kind of woman I'm courting." Ryder's jaw tightened. "I told him to mind his own business." Tears filled Fiona's eyes. "But now you're wondering if he's right." "No." Ryder turned to face her. "I'm wondering why you don't trust me enough to tell me yourself." The pain in his voice broke something inside her. "I was engaged," she blurted, "in Boston, to Arthur Blackfield from a respected family. We were to be married last spring." Ryder nodded, waiting for her to continue. 3 weeks before the wedding, I went to his home to discuss arrangements with his mother. She wasn't there, but Arthur was, with a woman, his mistress." Fiona's voice trembled. "When I confronted him, he claimed I had misunderstood, that she was merely a friend. But I had seen enough to know better. I broke the engagement." "That hardly seems scandalous," Ryder observed quietly. "It became so when Arthur spread rumors that I had been intimate with another man, that he had caught us together and ended the engagement himself." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "No one believed me, not even my stepmother. Arthur's family had influence connections. I became a social pariah overnight." Ryder's expression darkened. "This man dishonored you with lies. The damage was done so thoroughly that when my parents died shortly after, leaving me with little money, not a single family would employ me as a governess or companion. My aunt's invitation seemed providential until she retracted it." "And then I found you at the train station," Ryder said softly. "Yes." Fiona wiped her tears. "Now you understand why I've been reluctant to speak of my past, why I feared. I feared you would believe the worst of me too." Instead of responding immediately, Ryder took her hands in his. "Fiona Woodley, I have never met a woman with more integrity or kindness. I don't give a damn what some Boston society thinks of you. But your reputation in Oroville is strong enough to withstand gossip." His thumbs traced circles on her palms. "Unless you're telling me you don't have feelings for me. Of course I have feelings for you." The words escaped before she could temper them. "I've fallen in love with you, Ryder Dawson. That's why I couldn't bear for you to think ill of me." The confession hung between them for a heartbeat before Ryder pulled her into his arms. "Then that's all that matters." His kiss was gentle at first, then deepening with a passion that left Fiona breathless. When they finally parted, she rested her head against his chest, listening to his heart racing as rapidly as her own. "I love you," he murmured into her hair. "Have almost from the first moment. I saw you trying so hard to be brave at that train station." They walked back to the boarding house hand in hand, a new understanding between them. On the porch, Ryder kissed her again, briefly but tenderly. "I'll speak with Gerald Henderson tomorrow," he promised. "Make it clear that spreading rumors about you will have consequences. Please don't cause trouble on my account." "It won't be trouble, just a friendly conversation between men." What exactly transpired between Ryder and Gerald remained a mystery, but the rumors abruptly ceased. Viola Henderson continued to snub Fiona, but with diminishing effect as Oroville's citizens made their own judgments based on Fiona's character rather than hearsay. As winter approached, Dr. Jenkins took Fiona aside one afternoon. "You've transformed this practice," he told her. "Patients actually get billed now. Records are organized. I can find what I need when I need it." "I'm glad to be of service," Fiona replied, touched by his rare praise. "Thing is," the doctor continued, "I've been corresponding with a younger physician from Sacramento, man named Thomas Powell. He's looking to establish a practice in a growing town." Fiona's heart sank. "You're replacing me?" No, I'm considering retirement. Powell would take over the practice, but he'd need someone who knows how it runs." Jenkins peered at her over his spectacles. "Unless you're planning on leaving soon." "Leaving? Why would I? Dawson's been looking at rings at Hargrove's jewelry," the doctor said bluntly. "Whole town knows it. Figured you might have other plans soon." Heat flooded Fiona's cheeks. "He hasn't asked me yet." "He will." Jenkins nodded with certainty. "Man's besotted. But that doesn't mean you couldn't keep working. Powell would pay better than I do. He's got modern ideas about fair wages." The possibility of continuing her work even after marriage if Ryder proposed lifted a weight Fiona hadn't realized she was carrying. In Boston, a wife's working would have been scandalous, but Oroville operated by different rules. The doctor's prediction proved accurate sooner than expected. The following Sunday, Ryder drove Fiona to the Triple D for dinner as usual, but suggested a walk beforehand to work up an appetite. He led her to a hilltop overlooking the ranch, where a single oak tree provided shade. The November air was crisp, but not uncomfortable, and the view stretched for miles across rolling ranchland to distant mountains. "This is my favorite spot on the property," Ryder told her. "I come here to think, to remember what matters." Fiona gazed at the landscape, understanding why he found it centering. "It's beautiful." "I brought Caroline here when I first bought the land," he said quietly. "Asked her to envision our future home with me. She said yes that day to the ranch and to being my wife." Fiona's breath caught. Was he comparing them, or explaining why this place held meaning? Ryder turned to her, his expression earnest. "I never expected to find love again after losing her. Never looked for it. Then you appeared, standing alone on that platform, looking both terrified and determined." "I was both," Fiona admitted. I know. He took her hands. You've faced more than your share of hardship, Fiona. Been told you weren't enough, weren't worthy. But from where I stand, you're the strongest, most compassionate woman I've ever known. Tears blurred her vision as Ryder dropped to one knee before her. I love you, he said simply. I want to build a life with you, not the one I had before, but something new. Equal partners, like we've been these past months. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a ring, a delicate gold band set with a single pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. Will you marry me, Fiona Woodley? For a moment, all her fears resurfaced, that she wasn't worthy, that her past would somehow taint their future, that he would regret choosing someone like her. But looking into Ryder's steady gaze, those fears dissolved like morning mist in sunshine. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. The ring slid onto her finger as if made for her. When Ryder stood and gathered her in his arms, Fiona felt as though she'd finally found home. Martha wept with joy at the news, immediately launching into wedding plans. Dr. Jenkins offered gruff congratulations and confirmed that Dr. Powell would arrive in January, happy to keep Fiona on staff as long as your husband permits it. My wife will make her own decisions about working, Ryder replied firmly, earning a grateful smile from Fiona. They set the wedding date for December 15th, giving Martha just enough time to help Fiona prepare while allowing them to be settled before Christmas. The entire town seemed invested in their happiness, all except the Hendersons, who made a point of declining their invitation. 2 weeks before the wedding, Fiona received another letter from Boston. This one, however, came from Arthur Blackfield himself. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely open it. The contents left her cold. Arthur explained that his new father-in-law was expanding business interests westward and considering investments in the Sacramento Valley. He would be traveling to California in the spring and looked forward to renewing their acquaintance. The implied threat was clear: he could destroy her new life as thoroughly as he had her old one. Fiona didn't show the letter to Ryder, unwilling to cast a shadow over their wedding plans. But her distraction was noticeable enough that Martha confronted her the evening before the ceremony. Something's troubling you, her soon-to-be sister-in-law observed. And don't tell me it's wedding nerves. You've been worried for days. Reluctantly, Fiona shared the letter. Martha read it with mounting indignation. The nerve of that man to threaten you, however subtly. If he comes to Oroville and reveals everything, he won't reveal anything Ryder doesn't already know, Martha pointed out. And as for the rest of the town, most have already heard Viola's version and decided they prefer you anyway. But what if, Fiona Woodley, almost Dawson, you listen to me? Martha took her hands firmly. You are not in Boston anymore. Here a person's worth is measured by their actions, not their past. You've earned respect through hard work and kindness. No one can take that from you, least of all some fancy Eastern gentleman with a talent for lies. Her conviction was so strong that Fiona found herself nodding. You're right. I won't let him spoil tomorrow. That's my girl. Martha hugged her tightly. Now get some sleep. Brides should glow, not have shadows under their eyes. The wedding day dawned clear and cold, with a fresh dusting of snow that transformed Oroville into a winter wonderland. Martha had outdone herself decorating the church with evergreen boughs and white ribbons. Nearly the entire town attended, filling the small building to capacity. Fiona wore a dress of ivory satin that Martha had altered from her own wedding gown, with a lace veil that had been Caroline's, a gesture from Ryder that touched Fiona deeply. She would have wanted you to have it, he'd said when presenting it to her, as she walked down the aisle on Dr. Jenkins' arm, the doctor having offered to give her away. Fiona saw only Ryder waiting for her, his expression a mixture of awe and love that banished her last doubts. Their vows were simple and heartfelt. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Ryder kissed her with such tenderness that several women in the congregation dabbed at their eyes. The celebration afterward at the Triple D Ranch house lasted well into the evening. Neighbors brought food and gifts, the local musicians played for dancing, and even the December chill couldn't dampen the warmth of the gathering. Late in the evening, as the party continued around them, Ryder led Fiona to a quiet corner. "Happy, Mrs. Dawson," the name sent a thrill through her. "Happier than I ever imagined possible. There's something I want to show you." He guided her to a room off the main parlor that had been closed earlier. Opening the door, he revealed a study filled with books, a writing desk, and comfortable chairs arranged near the fireplace. "I had it prepared for you, a place of your own in our home." Fiona stared in wonder at the thoughtful gesture. "It's perfect. I want you to feel this is truly your home too," he explained. "Not just somewhere you live, but somewhere you belong." Overcome, she wrapped her arms around him. "I already do belong with you." Later, when the last guests had departed and they were finally alone, Fiona faced the intimacy of marriage with both anticipation and apprehension. Her limited knowledge came primarily from hushed conversations among married friends and her own imagination. Ryder sensed her nervousness. "We have all the time in the world," he assured her, leading her to their bedroom. "Nothing happens tonight that you don't want." His patience and gentleness transformed what might have been awkward into something beautiful. By morning, Fiona understood the depths of physical love in ways her Boston education had never prepared her for, and found herself grateful for the frontier's straightforward approach to such matters. The weeks that followed established their rhythm as a married couple. Fiona divided her time between managing their home and continuing her work at the doctor's office, now alongside the newly arrived Dr. Powell. Ryder ran the ranch with his characteristic efficiency, but made a point of being home for dinner each evening. They shared their day's events over meals, sought each other's counsel on decisions, and found in each other both passion and companionship. If neighbors raised eyebrows at Fiona's continued employment, the Dawsons paid them no mind. Winter passed peacefully into spring. Fiona's fears about Arthur Blackfield faded as April arrived with no sign of him. Perhaps, she reasoned, his threat had been empty, a final attempt to disrupt her happiness from afar. Then came the day Dr. Powell mentioned casually. "Interesting new patient this morning. Eastern gentleman, quite refined. Said he's considering investing in Valley properties. Name of Blackfield, I believe." Fiona froze, her hand stilling on the patient record she'd been updating. "Arthur Blackfield." "Yes, that's it. Do you know him?" "We were acquainted in Boston." She fought to keep her voice steady. "What brings him to Oroville specifically?" Mentioned something about reconnecting with old friends. Dr. Powell tilted his head curiously. "He seemed particularly interested when I mentioned my assistant was formerly from Boston. Asked quite a few questions about you." Dread pooled in Fiona's stomach. "What did you tell him?" "Just that you were now Mrs. Dawson and highly respected in town." The doctor frowned. "Did I speak out of turn?" "No, of course not. I just—" Fiona gathered her composure. "Mr. Blackfield and I did not part on the best terms." Dr. Powell's eyebrows rose, but he didn't pry. "Well, he's staying at the hotel for several days. Said he might need to consult me about a recurring condition, so I expect we'll see him again." That evening, Fiona told Ryder everything about the letter, her fears, and now Arthur's arrival in Oroville. To her surprise, her husband showed no anger at her withholding the information, only concern for her distress. "You want to avoid him?" Ryder asked. "You could stay at the ranch until he leaves town." Fiona considered this, then shook her head. No, I won't hide like I've done something wrong. Besides, it would only confirm any suspicions if I suddenly disappeared. Then we face him together. Ryder's expression hardened. But understand this, Fiona, if he spreads lies about you here, he'll answer to me. That's what I'm afraid of, she admitted. In Boston, his word would outweigh yours because of his family's position. I don't want you risking your reputation or worse on my account. In Oroville, a man's word is only as good as his character. Ryder took her hands, and yours shines brighter than anyone's. The confrontation came sooner than expected. The very next day, Arthur Blackfield appeared at the doctor's office while Dr. Powell was out on a house call. Fiona looked up from her desk to find him standing in the doorway, as elegantly dressed and handsome as she remembered, but his smile no longer affected her as it once had. "Fiona," he greeted her, removing his hat. "Or should I say, Mrs. Dawson, how domestic you've become." She rose, keeping the desk between them. "Mr. Blackfield, Dr. Powell isn't available at the moment. I didn't come to see the doctor." He stepped further into the office, glancing around with barely concealed disdain. "Quite a change from your Boston aspirations, isn't it?" "Working in a frontier doctor's office, married to a rancher, was it? I'm very happy with my life here," Fiona replied evenly. "What do you want, Arthur? Perhaps I'm simply curious about what became of my former fiancée." He moved closer. "Or perhaps I'm concerned that your new husband doesn't know exactly what kind of woman he married." Fiona felt a cold anger replace her fear. "Ryder knows everything about me, including the lies you spread." Arthur's smile faltered slightly. "Does he? Everything?" "Yes." A new voice entered the conversation as Ryder himself appeared in the doorway, his tall frame filling the space. "Everything." Arthur turned, assessing the cowboy with a flicker of uncertainty. "Mr. Dawson, I presume? I was just reconnecting with an old acquaintance." "So I gathered." Ryder stepped into the office, positioning himself beside Fiona. "My wife mentioned you might be visiting Oroville." The emphasis on wife was subtle but unmistakable. Arthur's eyes narrowed slightly. "Did she also mention the circumstances of our parting in Boston?" "She did." Ryder's voice remained calm, but Fiona felt the tension in him. "Including how you dishonored her with lies when she had the good sense to break your engagement." Color rose in Arthur's cheeks. "That's hardly the version accepted in Boston society." "I don't give a damn about Boston society," Ryder replied bluntly. "In Oroville, we judge people by their actions. My wife has earned the respect of everyone who matters through her work and character." Arthur's expression hardened. "How charming." The uncivilized West, where fallen women get second chances. Ryder moved so quickly that Fiona barely registered it before he had Arthur by the lapels, pushing him against the wall. "Choose your next words carefully, Mr. Blackfield, very carefully." Despite his precarious position, Arthur managed a sneer. "Resorting to violence proves my point about Western barbarity." "Ryder, please," Fiona touched her husband's arm. "He's not worth it." After a tense moment, Ryder released Arthur, who straightened his jacket with exaggerated dignity. "You should know," Ryder said quietly, dangerously, "that if any rumors about my wife begin circulating in Oroville, I'll know exactly where they started. And unlike Boston, we handle slander quite directly here." "Is that a threat, Mr. Dawson?" "It's a promise." Arthur glanced between them, apparently reassessing his position. "I had merely hoped to clear the air between old friends. Obviously, that's not possible." He retrieved his hat. "I'll be continuing my business in Sacramento. Oroville seems less promising than anticipated." "A wise decision," Ryder agreed. At the door, Arthur paused. "She'll never truly belong in your world, Dawson. Boston breeding runs too deep." Fiona stepped forward. "You're wrong, Arthur. I never belonged in Boston, not really. But here, I've found exactly where I'm meant to be." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps even a moment of recognition before his expression closed again. With a curt nod, he departed. Fiona sagged against Ryder once Arthur was gone. "Do you think he'll cause trouble?" "Not if he values his reputation as a businessman." Ryder held her close. "Men like him care about appearances above all. Creating a scandal here would reflect poorly on him in Sacramento business circles." She hoped he was right. "Thank you for defending me. Always." He kissed her forehead. "Though I was tempted to do more than just talk." "I noticed," Fiona said dryly. "Violence wouldn't have helped." "No, but it might have felt satisfying." Ryder sighed. "Let's go home, Fiona. I think we've had enough excitement for one day." That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Fiona felt a strange sense of closure. Arthur's reappearance had stirred old wounds, but facing him beside Ryder had healed something deep within her. "I was so afraid," she admitted, "that he would destroy everything we've built, that people would believe him over me, just like in Boston." Ryder took her hand, his thumb tracing her wedding band. "The difference is that here you're not alone. You have people who know your true character: Martha, Doc Jenkins, Dr. Powell, half the town, and me. I never imagined finding this kind of acceptance." Fiona leaned against his shoulder. "When my stepmother told me no one would ever want me after the scandal, I believed her. Even when I came west, I thought it best I might find a position as a housekeeper or companion, someone who would tolerate me for my services." "They said no one would want me," she whispered, the painful memory still vivid. The cowboy smiled. "They were terribly wrong." His words, so simple yet profound, washed away the last of her doubt. Fiona turned in his arms, seeing in his eyes everything she'd ever hoped for but never believed she deserved: respect, desire, and unwavering love. "I think," she said slowly, "I'm finally ready to stop looking over my shoulder, expecting the past to catch up with me." "Good." Ryder brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Because I've been thinking about our future." "What about it?" "This ranch has room to grow. More cattle, more horses, maybe—" He hesitated. "Maybe more family too when you're ready." The idea of children, something she'd long since resigned herself to never having, filled Fiona with unexpected longing. "I'd like that," she admitted. "Not immediately, perhaps, but soon." Ryder's smile widened. "No rush. We have all the time in the world." As darkness fell, they remained on the porch, planning their future in quiet conversation. The ranch house behind them, solid and welcoming, represented everything Fiona had gained: security, purpose, belonging. The vast sky above, studded with stars, symbolized possibilities she was only beginning to imagine. Later that night, as Fiona lay in her husband's arms, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to Oroville. Every setback, every heartbreak had led her here, to this place, to this man who saw her true worth when she couldn't see it herself. "I love you," she whispered, not certain if Ryder was still awake. His arms tightened around her. "And I love you, always will." In that moment, Fiona knew with absolute certainty that she had found not just a home, but her true place in the world. The Boston society that had rejected her faded to insignificance compared to the life she was building in this frontier town with the man who had claimed her heart. The years that followed proved the strength of their bond. Arthur Blackfield never returned to Oroville, his threatened business ventures materializing in other parts of California instead. The scandal he'd once used against Fiona became nothing more than a distant memory, replaced by her reputation as Dr. Powell's invaluable assistant and Ryder Dawson's beloved wife. Their family grew with the birth of their son, James, the following year, and their daughter, Elizabeth, 2 years after that. Fiona balanced motherhood with continued work at the doctor's office, setting an example for other women in Oroville who sought purpose beyond traditional roles. The Triple D Ranch prospered under Ryder's management, becoming one of the most successful operations in Butte County. When the railroad expanded its line to include Oroville in 1882, he negotiated favorable contracts for shipping cattle, increasing their prosperity further. Martha married again at 45 a widowed shopkeeper who had boarded at her establishment for years, but remained deeply involved in her niece and nephew's lives, spoiling them shamelessly at every opportunity. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ryder surprised Fiona with a trip to San Francisco, her first visit to a major city since leaving Boston. They attended the opera, dined in fine restaurants, and shopped in elegant establishments. But when Fiona caught her reflection in a department store mirror, dressed in the height of fashion, she realized something profound. "I don't miss it," she told Ryder as they walked along the waterfront afterward. "Any of it, the society, the pretension, the constant worry about appearances. No." He seemed genuinely curious. Not even a little, not even slightly. Fiona squeezed his hand. "I found something far more valuable than social acceptance. I found truth in you, in Oroville, in myself." That night, in their hotel suite overlooking the bay, Ryder presented her with a pearl and diamond necklace that matched her wedding ring. "For the woman who gave up one life to build something better," he said, as he fastened it around her neck. Fiona touched the pearls, emotion tightening her throat. "I didn't give up anything worth keeping," she replied. "And I gained everything that matters." They returned to Oroville and the life they had crafted together, a life built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and enduring love. As their children grew, they learned the story of how their parents met the lonely woman at the train station, and the cowboy who saw her true worth when everyone else had written her off. It became family lore, repeated at gatherings and celebrations, a testament to the power of second chances and the courage to begin again. And whenever young women in similar circumstances passed through Oroville, Fiona made a point of offering help and hope, remembering always how a single act of kindness had transformed her life. In 1899, as the century drew to a close, Fiona and Ryder stood once again on the hilltop where he had proposed 23 years earlier. The ranch had grown, the town had developed, and their children were beginning their own journeys, James taking over more responsibilities at the ranch, Elizabeth studying medicine with Dr. Powell. "Any regrets?" Ryder asked, his hair now silver at the temples but his blue eyes as kind as ever. Fiona shook her head, leaning into his embrace. "Not one. You. Only that I didn't find you sooner." He kissed her temple. "Think we have another 23 years ahead, at least," she promised. "I'm not finished loving you yet, Ryder Dawson." As they walked hand in hand back to the home they had built together, Fiona reflected that her stepmother had been wrong about so many things. But her greatest error had been in underestimating the healing power of true love and the strength of a woman determined to find her place in the world. In Oroville, California, with her cowboy by her side, Fiona Woodley Dawson had done exactly that, and in doing so, had created a legacy of love that would endure long after their own story reached its natural conclusion.